Alright, hello, citizens of the Nigelverse. It is Nigel here once again, and this is going to be another movie review. So, we are continuing our look back at the X-Men movies and reviewing what was the last X-Men movie, at least for a few years. And what concluded, I guess, kind of the original trilogy before they started doing, like, more sequels and prequels. I'm talking about X-Men, The Last Stand. For starters, as always, I'm not a professional movie reviewer or analyst, just a man who enjoys a good time, which I had a pretty decent time on. Now, like I mentioned in X2, when I kind of talked about me eventually reviewing X-Men: The Last Stand, a bit of a polarizing movie. I've kind of seen both sides of the spectrum. There are those who really like this movie, who really enjoy this movie, and then there are those who really don't like this movie, who really aren't a fan of this movie. And me personally, I feel like it's decent for the most part, but I can also see why some people probably aren't the biggest fans of this movie. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So, starting off with what I like. For those of you who've seen these reviews before, you kind of already know how this works and know how it's going to play out. But those of you who didn't, or haven't, I should say, those of you who haven't seen these reviews before, first of all, welcome. If this is your first time, of course. But also, pretty much I'm going to be talking about what I liked and what I disliked about the movie. Starting with what I liked. It ends some stuff for the most part, but also leaves some questions that will be pursued in later movies. Uh, some bold choices were made. As this movie goes on, it takes an already established character and kind of not only continues her arc from the previous movie, but then also gives her even more of a focus. And the way which of course the character is Jean Grey, who becomes the Phoenix, and the way she's kind of and the way her and Wolverine's story intertwines here. I think is pretty cool. So kind of like wrapping stuff up for the most part. But like I said, also leaving some stuff open ended. Don't wrap up everything, but leaving some stuff open ended. For or I guess what you can call sequel baiting, potentially leading to a sequel or perhaps even a prequel. Well, some stuff have left a bit more open ended, but things such as how they go about explaining the Phoenix in the movie, which this time around, as opposed to like a mystical force, a mystical cosmic force that takes over Jean Grey, this time it's described as an alternate part of her personality. Now, I think that's a bit of a gamble, kind of changing up of the origin story of the Phoenix. It does play into Jean Grey being powerful, probably one of the most powerful mutants in Marvel canon, and at least in terms of like comics and everything. But also now having it a part of her personality as opposed to a outside cosmic force, it may be a bit off-putting for some people. Like, why are they changing it to be a part of her instead of a cosmic force? But if you think about also showing a different part of Jean's personality, especially with her using Cerebro back in, I believe, the first movie. Now just building up how powerful she is, and to also kind of explain in how she survived at the end of the last movie. Plus, also you keep things within in kind of the universe. If that makes any sense. What do I mean by that? They don't have to introduce something almost completely out of left field to, which nothing wrong with how the Phoenix Saga did it. Of course, Phoenix Saga one of the best X-Men comics. I definitely got to read it at some point, but keeping things kind of in house and keeping that sort of aspect of her personality in house to Jean Grey's personality and everything, to be a part of Jean Grey, a part of her the entire time. I think is a gamble, but I can see why they took the gamble, and it leads to some conflict between not just Wolverine and himself, of the fact that Jean is too powerful and he has to be the one to stop her, but he doesn't want to because that's the woman he loves. But also sets up some conflict between him and Professor Xavier, who's been trying to block out that part of her personality from her bringing up those issues between the two, and kind of the debate of is doing something against the will. Is doing something against the will always the best thing for the person, which is something the movie does kind of explore, because on one hand, Jean not really given a choice as to having the Phoenix blocked from her psyche and her memory, but at the same time, with how powerful and dangerous the Phoenix is, is it necessary, which is something that the film explores. But they also have a couple other threads intertwined as well, because there's also a cure that will suppress the X gene permanently in mutants, or at least they say permanently, as we'll find out as the movie goes on, and as I'll talk about, not really the case, but a cure to fix the X gene and suppress the mutant gene, what they call fix, which also continues the trend of the topic that we've seen all throughout the series thus far, and that's the whole humans versus mutants. And it's just another thread and another wrinkle in that story, and seeing how the humans is almost like kind of forcing the mutants to take it. They want to present it like they're not going to force them, but then they do kind of force it on them, especially when one of the guards uses it right on Mystique, as Mystique is being broken out by Magneto and his Brotherhood, which now includes Pyro. Which Magneto, of course, I don't think I've talked enough about how really awesome Magneto is in the series. Magneto, of course, upset at something I'll touch on a bit later, but seeing how he wants to use this boy named Leech. I believe his name is Jimmy in the movie. His name does change from time to time, but pretty much Leech is the name, and using him and essentially killing him so that the X gene isn't suppressed, and the mutants wanting to take over humans, and using the mutants to kind of rise up against the humans, which is what Magneto's been doing the whole time, and what the movie is kind of saying is evil, but also it's somewhat justified, or it can be seen as justified based on how the humans have acted throughout the entire movie. Not just this movie in particular, but pretty much throughout the entire lore of the X-Men for years. The whole mutants versus humans, which of course was based on the civil rights movement and things like that. And the way it's explored here, I think, is pretty well done for the most part. They could delve a little bit deeper, but they are kind of trying to combine two stories at once, and they do intertwine with Magneto eventually recruiting Jean Grey, aka the Phoenix, and ultimately Wolverine being the one to finally kill her like she wanted him to put her out of her misery. As the Phoenix was taking over, Wolverine finally taking out the Phoenix. Some new characters introduced, including Warren Worthington III. His father, Warren Worthington II, is the one who developed the cure, and then Warren Worthington III, of course, Angel, shows up in this movie, and the effects for the time were actually pretty well done. And then we also have the Juggernaut, and we'll get to him. But yeah, so we got some new characters. As Angel more so joins the X-Men, and then hangs out with them, and then Juggernaut joins the Brotherhood. Which Juggernaut, they say here he's a mutant. I know in like some of the other like adaptations of Juggernaut, such as like the TV shows and stuff, they'll say he's a mutant. And it would make sense because that's Professor Xavier's brother, which I don't think they mentioned in the movie. But he's gone back and forth between being a mutant and someone who got their powers through mystical means. Of course, the helmet of Sudarak. I believe I pronounced that. I may have pronounced that wrong. If I did, I apologize. Marvel fans, please let me know if I mispronounced that. But kind of going back and forth as to how exactly he gets his powers. Is it the X gene? Is it the helmet of Sudarak? Is it maybe a combination of both? It kind of goes back and forward. But and we see some characters returning, including Rogue, who apparently they filmed like two different scenarios where she got the cure, but also may not have gotten the cure. Or in the version I saw on Disney Plus, she didn't get the cure, but there's an alternate one where she didn't get the cure. So, but also I think using her to kind of be the conduit for how they're telling the plot thread of the cure and everything, and I think is also pretty well done. Seeing someone like Rogue, who whenever she touches someone, they pass out and she absorbs their energy and everything. Having that had to be kind of the conduit for them to explain the cure and how it affects the characters, I think is pretty well done. And I know I'm kind of all over the place in this review, but there's a lot of stuff that the movie throws at you, and some of it may be a bit much to absorb, but others that, as they explain, relatively well. And going back to the name of the movie, The Last Stand, and it definitely feels like a last stand for a lot of times, especially with the death of Professor Xavier. As the movie had the gall, had the absolute stones to kill off Professor Xavier, which very bold choice. Actually, they kill off Cyclops, aka Scott Summers, Professor Xavier, and Jean Grey. Of course, when Jean Grey came back as the Phoenix, she killed Cyclops. And then Professor Xavier is also killed by the Phoenix as he tries to confront her. And then meanwhile, Wolverine then, like I mentioned, kills the Phoenix, aka Jean Grey, which fairly difficult for him to do. So, kind of pulling on those emotional heartstrings to the point where even Magneto was upset at his friend dying and everything, and ultimately, he kind of the irony where Magneto trying to use the cure her as a weapon is then used on him, and he's reverted to his normal. Well, I guess not normal, but reverted to a regular human. Or is he? Because at the end, we see him playing chess with the metal chess pieces, and one of them moves a little bit, showing that his power's returning. So, quite a bit that the movie throws at you. And, yeah, so the movie has quite a bit going on as well. The Xavier School is still up and running. There's debates between the characters as to whether or not to shut down the school, but they ultimately decide to keep it open. Yeah, so kind of carrying on the legacy of Professor Xavier. Or are they? Because at the end, a kind of a post-credit scene in which I don't think the first two X-Men movies had post-credit scene. This one did, where Dr. Moira McTaggart finds Professor Xavier alive. So he is alive, and definitely gonna show up in other movies, other X-Men movies down the line. But yeah, so like I said, quite a bit going on in the movie. Quite a lot. In terms of what I didn't like, I feel like all the stuff they do throw can be a bit much, and like I said, all the stuff going around. Like we comic fans know quite a bit of this and may be able to follow it, but for the people who don't really read comics, I imagine some of them may have had a hard time and kind of following along with all these different things. It may have a lot of questions, and some questions which do kind of get resolved in the later movies, but others not quite as much. Also, I have to talk about different character designs. The Phoenix, Jean Grey did look more evil. She had like the completely black eyes and everything. But other than that, even like her wardrobe didn't really look too much different from her other costumes. Maybe that's just me, but even having like kind of a derivative of like the Phoenix Phoenix outfit or even the Dark Phoenix outfit, which they kind of did. So maybe it's me kind of nitpicking because they did have like the red jacket and everything, but yeah, it's kind of. But I wish it was a bit closer towards the comic outfit. But that's just me. But we also got to talk about the Juggernaut and Colossus to an extent. Like Colossus, still kind of skinny. His effects, like the effects they use for the metal for Colossus, are better this time around. So I'll give the movie that. That's actually pretty good. But Juggernaut, also too skinny. Now Juggernaut is kind of tall and a bit on the hefty side. He has some muscle, but otherwise way too skinny. Juggernaut's supposed to be super big. He's bigger than Colossus though. They at least got that right. But Juggernaut is still too skinny. He way too skinny. Juggernaut, you gotta beef up, man. You gotta hit those push-ups. But thankfully, by the time we get to Deadpool 2, Juggernaut is a lot bigger. But this time around, Juggernaut way too skinny. Even the funny exchange he had with Kitty, when she sunk him into the floor, can't say the fact that this Juggernaut is too skinny. They got some of his powers right. The fact that when he runs, he gains a lot of momentum and is almost impossible to stop. The unstoppable Juggernaut. But other than that, you gotta beef up, man. You gotta beef up. Thankfully, both Colossus and Juggernaut get beefed up by the time we get to the Deadpool movie. So, thank you, Deadpool, for beefing up these characters, which were way too skinny in the X-Men movie. That and the Phoenix, which has been and kind of seen as somewhat of a pawn before with like the Hellfire Club, where she was the Red Queen and everything, but her kind of almost fading into pawn like with Magneto, which they kind of show she's not really a pawn, but she's kind of a pawn, but she's not really a pawn. I think that was a bit strange, but other than that, pretty decent movie. I definitely do recommend checking it out. But that is going to do it for this review. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor. Like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, turn on post notifications so you know every time I upload a video so you can see it as soon as it drops. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on the movie, my review of the movie. Did you like, dislike the movie? Did you like, dislike my review of the movie? Next time we do the X-Men movies, we have to go back to the beginning with X-Men Origins Wolverine. Oh boy. Definitely quite a bit to talk about there, which we will get to. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.